Hi, everybody. This is Brian Robb with Digital Throttle. Very pleased to have our first summer webinar series of 2026 with Hans Skilrud of Termageddon. We've been a user of Termageddon for a couple years now, and today's subject is all about website consent, privacy, cookie laws, state by state, country by country laws. It's a little bit of kind of a wild west out there right now. And we're getting a lot of requests from our customers about what they should do. They've received some kind of form letter from an attorney in California. And of course, they all run around the building going, what do we do? From a digital marketing standpoint, we have code installed on our clients' websites through which we track conversions and build retargeting audience for our clients. So being in compliance with different local, national, federal laws is a key part of what we do. And we think Termageddon is a great solution to do that. But before we jump into more details, I wanted to kind of give you a quick background on what are we talking about. So let me share my screen here, and then I'm going to let Hans take it over. There's a product in our industry called the Hans device, so I keep going back to Hans.
That's awesome. You might have to send that.
It's what motorcycle people in motorsports wear to protect their necks. Maybe in a way it makes sense. Okay, yeah. Here's the website for Termageddon. What I'm talking about are all of these privacy settings buttons that pop up on your website. So you can see here for their own website, they have this, and you've got, we buy as users, we're all reflexively saying accept all, deny all, whatever your policy is. You're starting to see these pretty much on every website that's out there. Even our own website, this is our version of Termageddon. And then our other website that we own, Cycle News, we have a different policy, which we'll be switching to Termageddon here shortly with, followed by CookieBot, which I think is a version of what Termageddon uses, right? User-centrics?
Yeah, so we provide user-centrics built in. There are certainly some differences between CookieBot and Termageddon. We can go into those details if you want, but my goal today is to educate website owners about these regulations that I think we all have been like, oh, they're annoying. This stuff annoys me. I don't really want to think about it. But then it becomes a really big deal once you get a demand letter asking you for $30,000 because you didn't get proper consent. So I'm trying to, my main goal will be to educate today, whatever consent tool you use.
And this is a good example. Cycle News, we own this publication, and we knew we had to do something. And we basically spent 30 seconds on the web. We found a plugin and we put it in. And it's had some negative consequences in terms of our tracking and so forth. So the purpose of this webinar is to show you, kind of high level, what are all these policies? How do you implement them? And then kind of the Q&A that we've got a lot of questions from our customers that we're going to pass around here. So this is basically what we're talking about here. So Hans, I will stop fumbling with all this and let you take it over and introduce yourself and what Termageddon's all about and get into the topic.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Ryan. I know this is one of the more dry topics that no one's really interested. So any brave souls listening today, I thank you in advance. This is not as entertaining as running a gorgeous looking website or maximizing analytics. This is kind of the antidote to all those things, which is how do I avoid website fines and lawsuits? A little bit of a dry topic, but I will try to keep it entertaining. So my name is Hans. I'm one of the co-founders of Termageddon. I started this company with my wife. Termageddon is an auto-updating website policies and consent provider. Our tool helps you identify what laws actually apply to you, make the disclosures required under those laws, and provide you a consent banner that's designed based on the actual laws that apply to you. There's a lot of confusion in that one statement alone, and I'm hoping to clear the air today. So a couple housekeeping items. Please note everything I share today is not legal advice. It's for informational purposes only. I'm just trying to provide as much education as possible, but you should speak with your attorney on what's best for your specific business. Okay, a couple other things. Prior to Termageddon, I ran a 10-person web design agency. That's where I lost all my hair. I don't know how Brian has retained his, but I lost all mine.
It's changing. I didn't start off with this color.
And where I come from, I came from a land of, whenever my clients would say, what should I do for policies? I'd be like, I have no idea. And then they'd be like, can you just copy something from my competitor website or ChatGPT? I mean, at the time it wasn't ChatGPT, it was some template online, but all those concepts of just, hey, can we just copy something somewhere else? I found myself doing it, and turns out I wasn't alone. It seems like pretty much everyone on the internet was just copying someone else's policy and hoping for the best. But what's happened over the last couple years, but last 10 years, it's really escalated the last couple of years, though, is that privacy has become a bigger and bigger deal. More and more regulations are being put in place. So what is it about? It's about governments passing privacy laws. Privacy laws protect people's data, meaning people's data is regulated. So if you're collecting things like names and emails through contact forms, or maybe you're collecting IP address through behind the scenes through tools like Google Analytics, that means you're collecting data. And since data is regulated, you may be required to comply with applicable laws. Now,
could that even include, like, if you've installed a Facebook Pixel?
Oh, absolutely. Facebook,
if you've just done like a plugin from some third party on your site for anything, the weather, whatever it is, those technically are tracking as well.
Yeah. So let's start with Facebook Pixel. Facebook Pixel, when you load a Facebook Pixel script on your site, you do that for running ads, which makes total sense. But I think a lot of website owners didn't really connect the dots that, every time someone visits my website, Facebook is running behind the scenes, collecting that user's data, building their own multi-billion-dollar business out of it for this free pixel we installed on their site. So every time we visit a website, and I'll show you this in a demo today, we are taking our website visitors' data, sending it off to all these third-party companies. So you're not only collecting data in that situation, you're sharing data as well, and that can have additional privacy implications. And Facebook Pixel is a good example of a third-party tracking technology, and I'm guessing anyone listening to this call, at least some listeners, have probably dealt with SIPA because it is a massively expediting situation for the web industry. And we'll get into that in more detail later. But
SIPA stands for
the California Invasion of Privacy Act of 1967. Yes, you heard that correctly. It is an extremely old law. It exists before Google even existed. And it was a law to protect Californians from third parties eavesdropping on phone calls. However, a group of opportunistic attorneys out of California have realized, well, the way this law is written, it technically could apply to website owners too. So websites that are loading third-party scripts and are not getting consent first prior to loading those scripts are at risk of receiving these SIPA demand letters. What is this? Let me try to explain this a different way. Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, Microsoft Clarity, Hotjar, Google Tag Manager loading any other third-party scripts. These are all examples where we're taking our website visitors' data, sending it over to a third party who's then monitoring as they navigate the website. And these people in California are suing website owners all over the US, not just in California, all over the US. I have some crazy examples if you want to hear them, but all over the US because they didn't get consent first from the California visitor. Third-party scripts need to be opted out by default. Opted out. They need to be turned off by default, and a properly built consent banner, when properly implemented, will block those scripts and only let those scripts fire after a user gives what's called explicit consent. And anyone listening, I'm doing air quotes. Explicit consent is when they take that action and say, I accept. That gives you the right to collect their data and share it with third parties who then track the people. That is the essence of SIPA demand letters, but it's also the essence of GDPR consent banners. Canada's PIPEDA, or Quebec Law 25's consent banner.
Just for people, GDPR is the European Union's
that's right.
Laws and regulations.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, GDPR requires consent prior to tracking or I believe collecting any data whatsoever. So yes, getting consent first prior to loading those technologies is absolutely a best practice under GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation that protects EU residents. And again, privacy laws don't care where you are located as a business owner. What they care about is whose data are you collecting? Because if you're collecting data from different places, you may need to comply with those laws as well as the ones in your own jurisdiction.
And when you talk about data, even if we've got a client that doesn't sell direct, they don't take credit cards or anything, having a newsletter sign up, that's considered data as well?
That's right. When you have a newsletter, you're asking for email address. Email is regulated, personally identifiable information. A contact form, asking for name and email. You're collecting data. So and I don't mean to be, I know our company's called Termageddon. We named it 10 years ago, back when this was like, okay, let's be funny, but now it's kind of like here. It will all come back to what I'm going to probably say several times today, is that when your goal is to, I feel like people have two different goal mindsets. the entry level people have the mindset of, oh, I'm just going to put something on my website. I'm going to put policies and a consent tool on my website and I'm protected forever. That's mindset one, which is just put something up. Then I want to bring people to mindset two, which is I want to put things up that help me actually avoid a fine or a lawsuit, actually protect me. And that's where agencies, web developers, and anyone who owns a website, they need to get to that era as quickly as possible. Why? Because there's a growing number of attorneys suing website owners now who aren't abiding to these laws. So
and this doesn't. So even if you're a small business with a site that gets 10,000 visitors a month or smaller, you still have to pay attention to this. Are there any exceptions? Like if for any kind of website or size of website, is there any exceptions where you can just ignore this?
Sure. So yeah, for SIPA, it's any website. I talked to a high school news. I talked to a high school, and this is publicly available on YouTube. That's why I can share it. This was a high school newsletter football team schedule website that showed in central Mississippi. That happened to have Google Analytics. They got a $30,000 demand letter for not loading consent to California visitors. A high school newsletter website. Got it.
In Mississippi.
In central Mississippi, yes. I've talked to guys who breed cattle in Iowa who got it from a California visitor. It is pure predatory. I'm not denying that fact, but it is something that website owners need to wake up to, is that our websites, modern websites, are designed to capture leads, to make improvements to it. It's not bad that we use these things. In fact, I would argue it's very important to using these technologies to run a proper modern website. It's just that we need to take regulations into account. It is no longer the Wild West of just tracking people without their consent. That era is coming to a quick end. And so we just need to be responsible with the data we're collecting through our website. And I hope to go into that more detail today too.
Cool. I think I dove way deep. I'm sorry. I'll let you get back on track.
Yeah. So to further answer your question, Brian, about do these laws apply to all websites? So I mentioned SIPA can apply to any website owner, but California has another law called CPRA, otherwise known as CCPA, and that one, a lot of people think that's the big one at California, and it is a big one, but it only applies to large businesses. You have to, number one, be a for-profit entity, so nonprofits are already knocked out from that law. You have to make over $25 million a year in revenue, or process the data of 100,000 or more California consumers, or derive 50% or more of your revenue from selling the personal information of California consumers. So if you're listening to that and you're like, actually, I don't hit any of those things. I'm not making over 25 million. I'm not processing 100,000. I'm not deriving revenue from selling. Well, then that law doesn't apply to you. And therefore, you don't need to make the disclosures under that law and don't have to deal with that. I see so many consent banners that are, and I'm going to hopefully not lose people here, but California sadly has SIPA, the one that's suing everyone. You need to be opted out by default. CPRA, you can be opted in by default. California, yes, has two conflicting privacy laws, so you need to be doing the safest one, which is opting everyone out by default. But this sets a bigger picture here, which is that there's so many privacy laws out there, and when it comes, like when people are like, "What should I include in my privacy policy? What should I include in my cookie consent?" It all starts with step one: identify what laws actually apply to you, because that literally dictates everything else for your website. Once you identify what laws apply to you, those laws say exactly what to disclose in your policies, exactly what type of consent you need to have for your website, and then you can move on with the right framework. And that's something that, like, not to be all salesy, but that's something that Termageddon takes at heart. Like, step one, our tool will find out what laws apply, and then we'll ask the questions to make the disclosures under those laws. But that's how any privacy attorney would address it as well.
And so if I recall, it's been a while since I've onboarded, but your system actually has like a survey, and it's almost a series of yes/no questions. And after you finish the survey, you're kind of provided a recommended set of policies that you need to install on your site. Which yes. I have a longer question on that, so I'll save that for later. But there seems to be 6 different policies that you're supposed to have on your site, privacy, site agreements, terms of use. Everyone names them differently, so I'm hoping we'll address that towards the end here.
Let's do that. Do you want to do it right now?
Yeah, so I mean, even our own site, we have a privacy policy, we have a site agreement, we have a terms of use, We have a terms of service. We have a do not sell my info. We have ad choices,
Yes.
cookie policy. And it's basically, I don't know, so I just threw the kitchen sink onto our website, which is probably not the right thing to do, but I think we're all trying to comply.
Sure.
What are kind of the main things that people should make sure their site has, even if they're not using Termageddon? What should they have at a minimum?
Yeah. So if you're collecting data, so contact form, analytics tools, virtually any website in this day and age.
And definitely make any kind of sell, obviously, right? Any kind of e-com.
Yeah, of course, e-commerce takes
Yeah.
tons of data. So if you're collecting data, whether that's typed out by the user, your website visitor, or it's collected behind the scenes through an analytics, marketing, or even security tool, you need to have a privacy policy that contains the privacy disclosures required under each privacy law that applies to you. It really is that simple. A privacy policy is a set of disclosures you are required to make under each applicable law. So privacy policy. Yeah.
If there's I'm just going to extreme. If there's 50 state laws, theoretically, you should have every state's some declaration to address each one of those state laws.
You can approach it several different ways. You can say, if you're a California visitor, here are your rights. If you're an Iowa visitor, here are your rights. We took a different approach at Termageddon where we feel like that's an obnoxiously large policy. So we actually condense it all. So because there's a lot of overlap. Virginia has many overlapping disclosure requirements under California. So Termageddon, I believe, is the only tool that's figured out how to combine all of them so that you have one policy that explains it. Although there are a few nuances. Like for Canada, you have to provide a point of contact for Canada, but we take care of all that type of stuff. But yeah, so you need to address each law that applies. And a privacy policy is a set of disclosures regarding the information you collect, what you do with that information, and all the disclosures required under each privacy law that applies to you. A cookie policy is kind of like an extension pack to a privacy policy. It's an extension pack. It's only needed under some, not all privacy laws. And it's a series of additional disclosures regarding the cookies you load on a user's browser when they visit your website. It's required under laws like GDPR, the e-privacy directive, and several other laws. So think privacy policy, the main thing you need. Cookie policy, only when certain laws apply. Terms of service, otherwise known as terms of use, otherwise known as terms, site agreement. These are all interchangeable words and phrases to explain one type of policy, the rules to using the website. So a term statement, again, all of the ones I just shared, they're all the same thing. A terms will explain to your website visitors the rules to using your website, and it's designed to do one thing really well, help you avoid website-related lawsuits. So a terms is a series of disclosures explaining why people visiting your website can't sue you. A really good example is third-party links. We all offer links to third-party sites, at the very least our social media links, and basically a terms will say, one of the many things it should say is, hey, we offer links to third-party sites. We're not responsible when you click on one of those links. If you click on that link and that site gets hacked, you can't come back and sue us. Very important type of disclosure. And it terms is basically a laundry list of reasons why, of protections for your business. Terms are also needed for e-commerce websites to comply with consumer protection laws. And that is because you need to explain things like refund policies, shipping policies, cancellation policies, processors, and stuff like that. So absolutely needed for e-commerce and highly, highly recommended for virtually any website because it's just protections. It's a series of protections for you as a website owner. A disclaimer is kind of like an extension pack to a terms of service. So just like cookie policy is an extension pack to privacy policy, a disclaimer is an extension pack to terms. It's an additional set of disclosures to help clarify and provide transparency to any disclosures you may be making that could be possibly misinterpreted. And that's a lot of talk. So let me give you some examples. Medical disclaimer, financial investment advice disclaimer, legal advice disclaimer. If you offer affiliate links, providing a disclaimer saying, hey, we offer affiliate links on our site. If you provide testimonials, you need a testimonial disclaimer. There's certain things where extra content around stuff you provide on your website may be put in place through a disclaimer to protect you, just in case there's someone that may misinterpret something you're saying on your website. Of course, I'm getting the hiccups during all this. That'll make this presentation that much more fun. I think the last one you mentioned was do not sell my information. That is only needed when you're making over 25 million a year, processing the data of 100,000 more residents of California or certain other states, or deriving 50% or more of your revenue from selling the personal information of California consumers. So yes, it is a required link. However, most customers that we've seen don't cross those thresholds. Termageddon determines if you need one, but if you don't, we just don't ask you for that. But it is a requirement under some of the bigger boy lawsuits that only apply to bigger businesses.
Did I miss any? Because I tried to go to a bunch of websites.
Sure was a lot. Yeah.
There's one called Ad Choices. So I see that every now and then on websites where there's like an Ad Choices button, and I think that's. How would you define an ad choice?
So I have not come across ad choices, but I feel like I can make a reasonable guess. I'm guessing that if you clicked ad choices, you as a consumer could maybe change your consent settings. I'm going to guess. So we call it privacy settings. People can call it cookie settings. It sounds, I'm guessing that sounds like a place you go to on a website where you can exercise your privacy rights and change your consent choices as a website. And that is required, but different terminologies. I haven't heard of ad choices before, but it makes sense. And yeah, sounds good. It is required under things like the e-privacy directive under GDPR, for example. So
okay. Whew, a lot to take in there.
So much.
The good news is, though, and again, a shameless plug for Termageddon here, your intake survey will, if it's answered thoroughly and correctly, will output what the site needs to install to satisfy these requirements.
That's right. And what's cool about our tool is that we not just generate the policies and consent tool for you. We what's really interesting, we generate codes that you copy and paste into the body of your policy pages, so that when new laws go into effect, we can just email our customers and then push the newly required disclosures automatically to the policy pages. And a lot of people are like, well, how often do these things change? In the next 6 months, we have 3 more laws going into effect or being amended that we're already addressing.
Individual states or countries.
What is it? Australia, I remember, is one of them, and then there's 2 U.S. state ones. I apologize, I don't remember the top off my head. My wife, who's the real brains of the operation, she's the other co-founder and the actual attorney. That's her job.
Give your wife's background, because I think that's kind of interesting in this.
Sure. Yeah, so I come from the agency world, copying and pasting privacy policies. My wife comes from the legal world, where she ran a law firm that was handwriting privacy policy after privacy policy. So she was kind of tired of the monotony of writing privacy policy after privacy policy and needing to charge clients 10 grand for a proper policy. And my clients would never pay that. And I was, she told me how dumb it was for me to be copying legal documents and hoping for the best. So we created Termageddon as a happy medium. So $120 a year, you get everything, all auto-updating policies and a consent tool for your website. So yeah, we created Termageddon as kind of that happy medium between free and risking it all and, hiring an attorney, which I'll be the first to say, if you can hire an attorney to draft your policies, monitor laws, keep them up to date over time, and help you decide a consent tool, like, more power to you. It's just most website owners I meet don't have 10 grand a year laying around for such a luxury, so they come to a tool like us, where, and for the record, we cover over 125 website related laws, rules, and regulations in our tool.
So let's kind of get into that. ChatGPT, Claude, whatever your AI, your favorite tool is. Can't you just go to ChatGPT and go, give me a policy XYZ and plug it in? What's the downside to that?
Yeah, you absolutely can do that. And what it will produce, I guarantee, will not be compliant. And that's not me being I'm sure I come off with some bias there, but we've actually run tests. And we have a blog article where we ran tests where we said, hey, write me a privacy policy. It was not compliant with every single privacy law. And why do I say that? Because it was missing disclosures that each law has its own, because each privacy law has its own disclosure requirements, and we were able to check off not a single privacy law was covered. And then we said, write me a GDPR privacy policy. Okay, now it got a little bit better, but still missed disclosures. Then we said, okay, write me a GDPR privacy policy with these exact disclosures. And we listed out every single one that GDPR specifically requires, and it nailed it. We'll be the first to admit, it absolutely nailed it. But here's the problem, is that a lot of people think, so I will say, I will give it credit where it's due. Like, it absolutely killed it. It was really impressive, actually.
If you can ask the right questions, right? So
exactly.
That as soon as you know the questions to ask.
Exactly. If you know what questions to ask. So GDPR is just one of 3 dozen privacy laws out there. So you would have to determine all the disclosure requirements under each law, find out what each law applies to you, then ask it. And that still doesn't ask the question, what's going to happen in 4 months when the next US privacy law goes into effect? So there's still the strategy needed to keep that stuff up to date. And it's like, at some point in time, just like, maybe let professionals be professionals, select a provider that you like and trust, and you focus on your business while relying on third parties to help you with everything else. So yeah. So hopefully that helps the ChatGPT, because I know if I didn't marry a privacy attorney, I'd be doing the same exact thing. I'd just be going to ChatGPT, and that's that group one where I put something up. It's like, I want you to go to group 2, which is I'm trying to install things to actually avoid a lawsuit. So
no, and then the other one is just go find a plugin or a free plugin that's out there and throw it on your site. What's the downside you've seen with those kind of tools?
Yeah, so to date, I have never been disproven of this, but I've never seen a plugin comply with all privacy laws, let alone most of them don't comply with a single privacy law. A lot of them will say GDPR compliant, and unfortunately, we've been able to spot errors and omissions on every single one. Now, granted, I will stop saying that the day someone sends me something that we're like, okay, finally, like there is a template out there that can do this. But even if it does, if you're going for free and you're going to try to get something free and fast, that does not align with how do I avoid fines and lawsuits. Like taking time and doing it right. I know it's work up front, but it's work that pays out in dividends. Because like with a tool like Termageddon, you're setting up the foundation for the future so that you can get updates and alerts whenever things change in the future. So I can't help, obviously I'm biased, but I can't help but recommend that. Over the last 10 years, we've had to make 30, 40 updates for our customers. And it's like, throughout that time, if you built a privacy policy, have you really truly been up to date with those laws changing all the time?
So here's a big one. A lot of our clients, they hire a web agency or they plug in Shopify. So aren't those companies either building my site or Shopify or WooCommerce, whoever it might be, WordPress, aren't they responsible for all this stuff? And can the site owner just ignore it, knowing that those guys will take care of them?
So website owners, that is a very common misconception. When you are the business owner, you're the website owner, you are the one who's responsible for complying with laws. You are hiring third parties to implement things, but at the end of the day, it will land on you, the website owner, to comply with applicable laws. Now, with that said, if a website owner gets a demand letter asking for 40 grand because they loaded a script that they they never were told was loading on the site, yeah, I'd imagine they'd be pretty upset. And quickly it becomes a very difficult conversation with agencies. So what I would recommend is that first and foremost, agencies and web designers out there, they need to understand this stuff is regulated. There's no more pretending, like there's no more keeping your head in the sand. Third-party scripts are high risk. Period. So we should only be implementing those if we absolutely need it. And number two, which we typically do, we need it for analytics, we need it for marketing, but ensuring consent is being properly captured at the very least from the website visitors in the areas where they're protected. That's what avoids the fines and lawsuits. So agencies, be aware of that stuff, educate your clients about these requirements, and website owners, you gotta accept the web industry is regulated and you are the website owner at the end of the day, unless your contract says otherwise, which it shouldn't. Any agency should ensure the website owner is the website owner. But yeah, be aware that regulations exist and there are tools out there to help protect you. You just gotta take the time to do it.
Is there actually like a tool where you could scan your current site and it could flag some of these scripts that you might not even know are kind of operating in the background that could be a liability?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that. I'm probably not allowed to say this, but Termageddon is deploying a scanner to do that exact thing.
Oh, okay.
Probably shouldn't be sharing that. This is probably a little early, but here we are.
Everyone's going to be asking for it tomorrow.
Anyone who's brave enough to still be listening to this, then yeah, but yeah, it is coming very soon. Like it's already working on a couple test sites, test hosting companies that have implemented it. But yeah, additionally, there's a company called Locker, Locker, that provides like scan reports they're not a consent tool. They provide like scan reports prior to consent. Okay. They're quite expensive in my opinion. Like we're going to just offer ours for free, at least for the time being. Like that's what we're considering doing. But you know what? Like, let's take a step back. I think a lot of us want to use scanners, and I don't want to actually look at things myself. But I'm going to share my screen here, and let's just visit. I want to just show you how easy it is for these attorneys to submit lawsuits, and also just for us as website owners to see what's going on. So I have a test site here. Okay, very simple site on the front end. It looks very simple, but when I right-click and inspect, all you have to do, I'm using Chrome incognito window, right-click, inspect, and go to the network tab and refresh the page. And all these resource URLs are loading. And when I click them, I'm going to click one of them. And you see how it says connect Facebook?
Yeah.
The next one, Content Square, which is, I believe, Hotjar, Facebook. Okay, Hans.Termageddon, that's my main site. So that's not third party. That's nothing to worry about. LinkedIn, Google Tag Manager, loading Google Analytics. And if you're like, I don't know, if you do this for your own website, you don't know what this is, copy this URL, throw it into ChatGPT. It tends to be pretty comprehensive. Obviously double check, but it can give you a big clue as to what you're loading on your site. So anything that's third party here in the request URL, that is how easy it is for an attorney to spot a website and submit a lawsuit. Visit the site from California, right-click and inspect, go to the network tab, look for third-party things that are loading prior to consent, and then submit your lawsuit. It is that easy. But what can we as website owners do? Well, let's fight fire with fire. Visit your site, fresh incognito window, right-click and inspect, go to the network tab and refresh. What third-party things are loading? Do you see anything other than your main domain loading? You should be taking that into consideration because third-party scripts are now high risk.
So one of our suggestions for our clients, and this is what we do when we onboard, is we install Google Tag Manager. So before, we don't put codes directly on client sites, and we don't encourage them to do that. With Google Tag Manager, it's pretty much, is that an effective way to make sure nothing starts until you see an overt consent or decline?
It's not, unfortunately. So Google got fined billions of euros a few years ago, and they had to deploy something called consent mode. Now, our consent tool is a Google certified consent product, but there are steps that you need to take within Google Tag Manager. Simply put, Google Tag Manager is an awesome dashboard for loading third-party scripts into the header of a website. That's what Google Tag Manager does. It loads scripts into the header of the site, and it does some other things, but for the general things here. Now, when I visit a website and Google Tag Manager loads, normally it would just load in all other scripts, but that's not compliant with laws. So let's give an example. Let's say you're using Google Tag Manager to load in Google Analytics and Hotjar. When I visit a website, I need to be able to drill down in the consent banner and say, I agree to Google Analytics, but I don't agree to Hotjar. And when I click save, that level of data needs to pass through Google Tag Manager and so that Google Tag Manager knows, oh, load the Google Analytics tag, but don't load Hotjar. That is Google consent mode, passing consent choices into Google Tag Manager so Google Tag Manager knows which tags to fire. Consent mode is some other things as well, but for the sake of this conversation. And so Termageddon, we provide user-centric, which is a Google certified CMP, but there are a set of instructions you have to follow in our support guide on how to set up consent mode.
CMP stands for?
Consent Management Platform.
Okay.
Sorry.
In our world, acronyms are.
I'm sorry. In my world, I'm so used to that.
Stairway down to hell, I call it. So CMP. So for our clients, we do implement consent mode GTM. So that's but that's only been the last couple of years that's been there.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And just remember that you need to, set up the updated Google tag. You have a new GTM script. You add in the header. It's the consent mode script that Google provides. And then for non-Google tags, at the very least, for non-Google tags, add a custom variable and trigger to each tag so that when a user explicitly accepts Hotjar, that data passes into Google Tag Manager and it says, hey, any tag with the variable Hotjar, let it fire. And that's what ensures we get consent before we take our visitors' data and share it with third-party trackers.
So this leads to, selfishly, an advertiser who's using analytics, who's using pixels, who's using Google Ads to measure conversions, meaning a dollar spent, how much did it produce in sales or leads or whatever it might be. I've seen it firsthand where people put in really strict consent banners and they just crush their analytics. their site traffic suddenly goes 90%, and they don't understand why. And it's simply because they turned on the most restrictive policies out there. So what's the balancing act between complying but not losing all the data that we need as marketers?
Yeah, great question. So I have a handful of recommendations for this. So first and foremost, I'm never going to take a knee and say, don't just go ahead and track people. I'm never going to say that. I've seen one too many small business owners get $50,000 demand letters to not recommend that. So I will always recommend getting proper consent, but there are some strategies you can do to maximize the analytics while still dealing with all these regulations. And also, I want to note, every marketing team hates me, I've come to learn, because I'm the bearer of bad news. But here's what I would do. So I would install the consent banner to start and ensure it's properly working. Just it's working properly. It is blocking scripts until after consent is obtained. That's step one. Make sure you have the right regulation controls in place.
Okay.
Step two, only display the consent banner to visitors in California, Canada, Europe, and UK, European
And
Union.
to me, that's a huge one, because especially in the digital advertising world, 80% of your ads are seen and clicked on mobile. And like, even if you go to Digital Throttle right now on your mobile site, the consent banner takes up half the page.
Sure.
And it's like, so from an advertiser, marketer, creative type, I'm like, this is horrible. I hate this. So you're saying if someone comes to my site from Texas and that consent's not required to show up, they'll see a nice clean site.
That's right. They won't see the consent banner at all. So what we're doing here is we're setting up to only display the consent banner to the people that need to see it. Now, I want to note, Texas has a privacy law. It may require consent with a cookie banner or an opt-out consent. But with Texas is another one of those examples where that law only applies to bigger businesses. And that brings me back to, you need to find out what laws apply first, because that will dictate where you need to display the consent banner to. But for the sake of this example, the broad reaching ones are California, Canada, Quebec, which is in Canada, EU, and UK. Now,
so just being like scared and going, every person on my website's got to see this banner and click on it. That's overdoing it, in your opinion.
That is, yeah. Well, it's overdoing when you value analytics data over privacy rights of people that don't have rights. Yes, I would say that's the better route. If you're like, you know what, I kind of run under the mindset, like, I don't like being tracked. I kind of want to give this to everyone. Hey, congrats, you're probably I mean, that's a privacy best practice, and it's but what you have to do is only display the consent to the people that have to see it. So now you're getting all that data from all the people that don't have those privacy rights. I'm from Chicago. I don't have these privacy rights, so I shouldn't be seeing any consent banners, if that makes sense. Now, there's ways to even further maximize analytics for California visitors that click deny, and that is Google Advanced Consent Mode. Google Advanced Consent Mode is Google's, for lack of a better word, clever way of loading their scripts and providing what's called cookieless pings, where they're able to obtain some data, not as much as for the users that click to accept, but some data, and Google claims they're not tracking the user. This
like anonymous users, right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Collecting numbers without assigning them to individual people.
That is, I understand that's correct. Yeah, technically they collect IP address, but they say they instantly anonymize it, and they don't track that user until they click accept. And you can test it, because you'll see Google script fire in the network tab, but when you inspect and go to application cookies, you won't see Google Analytics or Google AdWords cookies until you actually click accept all. So you can actually even test that theory out. So me personally, I think it's just best, don't let scripts fire until after consent is obtained, but I'm coming from one side of the table. I come from just regulation, so it's so easy for me to say that. When you're on the other side and you also have other variables, like I need to grow my business and run analytics, that might be something to consider. So you can maximize analytics capturing with advanced consent mode in the areas you need to display the consent tool to. In all other areas throughout the US, don't display the consent, which your website visitors won't have to see the banner, and they're just auto accepted into everything still for now, for the time being.
A question our ad ops team comes up with: does advanced consent mode apply to both Google Analytics and Google Ads?
That's right. That's correct. Cool. Yes. It applies to all Google related products. So if you're loading those all through GTM, you actually just have to follow step 1 and 2 in our article. But for any non-Google related tags in your Google Tag Manager, that's your Hotjars, Clarity, HubSpot marketing, those need to be set up with the extra steps that truly turn those scripts off until consent is obtained. This is
someone
so in depth. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sure this is so intense for everyone. Like,
yeah, well,
it's intense stuff. It's a lot of work to do this stuff. I mean, it's a real pain.
So when someone does your survey, how long does it typically take before they're completed?
Yeah, so I would say the average customer, if you make less than 25 million a year, you'll be in and out in, I'd say, 40 minutes these days.
Okay.
If you make over 25 million, and there's some other variables with broad strokes, over 25 million a year, you're looking at closer to like an hour 15.
Okay.
And yeah, and I always say, we don't ask these questions for fun. There's some government somewhere who wrote something that requires us to bring this question to you. And just so you know, every question has something called Termageddon on the right-hand side, where it's a video of me or another staff member and some supportive articles so that you can determine how best to answer the questionnaire.
And then if there's a script that we happen to use from, especially in the AI world, a new plugin, should they go to Termageddon and go, hey, I've got this new third party, how should I address it in my policy? Is that best practice with you?
That's best practice, 100%.
Okay.
Like, there's a chance.
Don't just click the calendar plugin appointment scheduling tool without first going to you guys and going, hey, what should I do on this?
Yeah, absolutely. We as website owners need to understand that third-party tracking technologies are high risk. Scripts are now, for the last 20 years, they haven't been, but they are now high risk things to add to a website. It's like, I for lack of a better analogy, I'm deciding to install, like, I don't know, nitrous oxide boosters to my car. Like, okay, your car is going to go faster, but it's high risk, like, of your car exploding. Like, so yes, we as website owners need to understand this stuff is regulated. It is regulated. These scripts are regulated. So I need to be conscious of that when I'm adding stuff to my site. And if you do add a third-party technology to your website, whether it's Termageddon or your lawyer or another provider, you need to take that into account in your policies and your consent tool.
So if I'm a business owner, at the end of the day, it's my checkbook. Should I have a policy that just says, hey, web developer, third party, whoever it is, before you add anything from a third party on my site, I need to know about it, and I need you to kind of tell me that you've got this covered.
That is, if there's at least one person listening to this and walks away with that as a takeaway, I would be so happy. That is how we should be doing it. The stuff is regulated. We as website owners need to be asking our developers, what third-party technologies are you loading on my site? And is it absolutely necessary? And if so, are we getting proper consent? That, oh my gosh, it's music to my ears if you could get
we build a lot of ad landing pages for clients, and we're starting to use more AI tools to build these pages quickly and more accurately. They could inevitably be using a plugin that we're not even aware of. So is that where this new pending scan tool you're coming out with might help us? Is that, well, I just built my website using Duda, and they put a plugin, and your scan tool would kind of catch it, like, hey, you got to declare that somehow, somewhere.
So there's a lot in there.
Yeah,
I would not rely. The reality is, I would not rely on any scanner, even one provided by Termageddon, to be the end-all solution. The end-all solution is knowing what you're putting on your website. So I would say, to maybe counter it, it's like with your AI tool, like, could you set up something like, inform me if you're loading any third-party script? Maybe that would help in that type of situation.
Yeah.
Because
it's a cookie, even like a remember me cookie kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you should, say, hey, maybe the AI inform me of privacy implications. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, saying, oh, I used an AI, I didn't know it added that, that's not going to hold up in court. It's always going to land on the website owner. So we have to be conscious of it. And I shared in this video how to inspect your site for that network tab, which will give you direct insight into what these attorneys do. That's exactly what they do. That's exactly what these law demand letters look like.
So that brings up a question. So are companies and website owners getting contacted by the state of fill in the blank, or are they actually getting contacted by private attorneys? Because I don't understand how a state law could allow a private party to demand money from you.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So the consequence of non-compliance with privacy laws is penalties, but penalties could be fines or lawsuits. Most privacy laws are fine related. Where they're like, hey, and that's where the government will reach out to you and inform you of problems. But
they probably only do that for really big sites, right? Big
That seemed well.
Huge companies.
Yeah, California seems to be going after big ones, but in the EU, you can go to the website enforcement tracker. You'll see one-person website owners getting dinged. So I wouldn't create that for broad strokes purposes, because some laws, yes, the enforcement seem to only be bigger businesses, but other laws, one-person site owners. Now, there's another group of privacy laws like SIPA, where the penalty defined under that law is you as a consumer have the right to sue. And those are the ones the opportunistic attorneys use to sue website owners. So some laws, governments can come after you. That's fines, which are massive, for the record, $2,500 per website visitor whose rights you infringed upon. Like, you get 1,000 visitors from California during that time. Good luck paying that bill. And then there's lawsuits, which other privacy laws have defined as the penalty. So it brings it all back down to that very first start. Find out what laws actually apply. That literally dictates absolutely everything else for your business.
I have one last question from a client. If I put up a web consent banner that clicks everybody sees this, they can either accept or decline tracking. Do you guys have a feeling for how many people click accept versus decline? Out of 100 people, how many decline and how many accept?
Yeah, great question. So first off, obviously, this is dependent on the type of website you have. If you're selling something that's like adult related or risque, you're going to get a lot more denies than someone who's like a local doggy daycare website. So keep in mind that industry matters significantly with the client acceptance. But I would say in general, the typical customer we see at Termageddon, 80% click accept, I would say. That's a rough thing. Now, I will say, over the years, back in the day, like 5 years ago, everyone was just clicking accept and never thinking about it again. But we are seeing a trend downward where more people are exercising their rights, more people are clicking deny or clicking more information in seeing what you're loading on a website. More people are taking privacy seriously, and that seems to be a growing trend. So I would say that well, how do I counter this? When someone clicks more information, don't have 45 different scripts loading. Maybe just a couple that you absolutely need. And
that's where your tool kind of geo-customizing itself to, I'm not going to show you Italy's law or GDPR
that's right.
law.
Yeah.
If you're in Kentucky, right? I'm just going to show you whatever Kentucky's law is.
That's right. A good example is Europe with GDPR. You need to be opted out by default. VCDPA, Virginia's privacy law, you can be opted in by default. That's why we structure the framework of the consent to be based on the person that actually is visiting your website. Yeah.
Okay. So if you just do the plugin, everyone gets blocked, and you decide I'm not going to track anything, you're going to lose 20% overnight, basically. Your guess on any of your analytics. So you're going to see your site traffic, pixels, retargeting, conversion tracking, and minimum 20% haircut.
Yeah, I would say that's right. Now, a lot of people will see the data and it's like, oh, it's going down. This is bad. It's like, well, no, you installed a consent tool. People are just exercising like this. You're still getting that previous traffic, and you could cross-reference it against our data, which is like, okay, how many people click denied? So it's like, okay, I can add that on top. But that's a new reality. Now, there's other things I probably should have mentioned earlier, like how do I maximize my analytics? You could install privacy-focused analytics alternatives. There are tools like usefathom.com where it's $10 a month, so it's not free. But as we have all learned, Google Analytics is not free. They've been harvesting our website visitors' data. UseFathom is a privacy-focused analytics tool that will show you how much traffic you're getting, because consent isn't needed for it, because it's not tracking users under SIPA. So you could counter that stuff with new era privacy-friendly alternatives where it's like, okay, yeah, in Google Analytics it went down because you didn't get acceptance, but in your Fathom account, here's the actual traffic you're still getting. We're just not able, obviously Fathom doesn't have as in-depth analysis as Google Analytics, obviously.
Yeah, most people are kind of looking at top-line numbers, so maybe use Fathom is the way to look at it.
Yeah, something to consider.
So to kind of bring this full circle, someone sat through this whole thing. Thank you. I hope you learned something.
You're a brave soul.
If you're a business owner like me, you're probably a little scared at the same time, like, oh man, I got to do this right now, which you should. That's always the problem I see with things like this is it's something important, but it becomes the manana tomorrow project.
Yes.
What you're saying is you're seeing an acceleration. you got to get this done. Summer's a great time to do it before we get into the busy show season and year-end planning, et cetera. So just don't go home this week without getting this done is the first thing I heard.
Yeah,
Second
I would
thing
say
I heard was
set aside 2 hours. 2 hours, as we shared the rough time estimates. If you set aside a 2-hour block, you will have your policies generated, your consent tool generated, and probably have everything implemented, and probably be testing at the very least. Maybe have everything complete by that time.
and again, we're not giving legal advice here, but I have to suspect that if you're showing good faith and you've got modern policies and settings on your site, the attorney who's looking to make a case against you might just skip you and go on to the next guy.
I would say otherwise. No, I have had so many people come to us using competitor products that have installed a consent banner and had it installed they didn't test it on the site, or they marked everyone as accepted by default.
Okay.
These are things that have result. Yeah. So I was thinking that way maybe 6 months ago, but we've seen a new era of site these demand letters. Yeah, you have to install the consent.
Just having a button on your site that says cookie policy, that's it actually has to work and do what it's supposed to.
It has to work properly. Yes. And I wish I could sit here and be like, just do that because it's so much easier. But no, it has to work with your actual site. Yeah.
Don't be a poser.
Yeah. And also, if you're a website owner listening to this, like, reach out to your web developer and ask for a fee. Like, this is going to take some time to implement, especially on sites using Google Tag Manager. Like, if agencies are willing to help you, first off, you should be super thankful because this is a whole learning experience for just about everyone on the internet right now.
Yeah.
But they, expect to be charged for this. This is going to take them a lot of time, as it would take you a ton of time to figure out.
Yeah.
They'll probably do it faster than you, but it's still going to take them some time to test things and show you things. And ultimately, it will be you responsible for testing it yourself on your own website at the end of the day.
So if they set up a Termageddon account, not only do they get that initial policy, do they get emailed on updates to policies?
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you have to go back in and just update that survey on some frequency?
So if you add things to your website, I would highly recommend just going in and updating your license. There's a functionalities page. So if you have a new functionality, like I've added a calendar booking system, just check that box and load in the popular answers. If it's Calendly, add in Calendly. And then test your consent to make sure it's loading. And this is only third-party stuff that I'm talking about here. That's the main thing that these lawsuits are all about.
Don't sign up at Termageddon and just forget about it. This is something you just got to bake into your calendar like every 3-6 months. Let's go through what we've updated. Let's make sure Termageddon's synced up with what we're doing. And
that's not a Termageddon thing. This is the future of web. Like, regulations are here. Third-party scripts are high risk. So let's take a conscious effort to just remember this and make sure people that are editing the site are fully aware that scripts are high risk. Like, if we can get everyone getting a little PTSD, scripts are high risk, like, we're in a good place. The good news is there's solutions out there, though. Like, I know this is all scary, and I apologize. I know our company name is Termageddon. That was meant to be funny. Like, the time has come, though, where it's like, okay, I gotta embrace this stuff and just move on in life. Another thing that someone may be thinking here is like, I don't even need traffic from California. Block it. You can block traffic from certain states. Like, if you absolutely don't need it, just get rid of it. But just know that could be a slippery slope because more laws are passing. So it's not like I'm going to block it and just ignore my responsibilities. Like, but that could be like an easy button, at least as a temporary thing to consider. So
now I believe Termageddon has kind of an open blog as well on a lot of these topics. So if someone wants to do more research, can they go to your site and do a little more deep dive?
Yeah. So on Termageddon.com/blog, I recently wrote an article called The 7-Step Guide to Avoiding a SIPA Demand Letter. Highly recommend giving that a watch. Simply put, it's about identifying the stuff on your website, removing the stuff you don't actually use, replacing whatever you can with privacy-focused alternatives. And for all other third-party scripts, make sure you get proper policies and consent in place.
So the good news is this webinar has gone about 40 minutes. You're saying that's about how long it would take to get started, not including installing code, but at least the intake. So you're already halfway to,
that's true.
So if you've gotten this far on the video, just
take the time.
Just there, right? Yeah. One thing I caution you, if you are a client of ours, make sure you coordinate with us when you put anything on, because we need to make sure our tracking is following what you've done. We can set up a lot of these more Google advanced consents, which we do already. But you don't want to put any of these things in and suddenly have your multi-$1,000 ad budget go to heck because you can't track anything. So I think you can't do this on a Saturday by yourself. You need to kind of talk to your web guy, your marketing people, your your digital marketing.
And Brian, for what it's worth, for Digital Throttle, for if you are planning to send customers directly to us to get set up, we do offer a complimentary. You're an agency partner, so we offer complimentary onboardings for your direct customers. So anyone who's listening who's a direct customer, you can, Brian, you're more than welcome to connect us in an email, onboardings@termageddon.com. We'll make sure they get all set up, and then we'll share the license with you at the end of the call. We get those calls done in about 40-45 minutes, and that's everything, registration.
You're literally like you'll walk them through the whole thing?
We literally walk them through the whole thing, and then we share the license with you so you can get the codes added to the site and test everything. So they'll use your promo code throttle at checkout. And I would highly recommend just book us for a call, because that tends to be like, okay, I have to have this call at this one time and it's done within the hour. That's something to consider.
I didn't even know it offered that. we were just linking to your site to help people. So yeah.
Oh no, that's extremely popular. Extremely popular, because we'll help inspect and help identify as many scripts as we can find in that call and go from there. So.
And I'll put additional links at the bottom of the webinar here. Any kind of material that Hans sends afterwards to help. And this is going to be an evolving topic. So this is not a one and done kind of thing, because it's important. We feel obligated to help our clients steer through this, because it is complicated. As Hans kind of set up, it's a little scary at the same time.
Well, Brian, I think like you taking this type of time and all the exchanges we've had over the years, it's just great working with an agency owner who, whether we like it or not, are going to be embracing it, just because this is the future. And it's like, okay, I don't want a customer ever having to deal with one of these ever again. So
our motto has always been, the good news is you can measure it. The bad news is you can measure it. I guess nowadays it's, the good news is people can go to your website. The bad news is people can go to your website. So
the bad news is so can lawyers.
Let's, and you're being married to one, so I'll let you deal with that. But
I took a hit for the industry.
Yeah, I think we all want to do what's right. And so hopefully this webinar has gotten people started in the right direction. Hans, thank you so much for the time. I learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot of this. I took a bunch of notes here. We'll put those in the webinar, and appreciate your time, and good luck with the great company.
Thanks so much, Brian. Really appreciate your vote of confidence, man. Thank you.
All right. Have a great week. Thank you, Hans.
Bye,
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.